Love it.
All right. Well, good evening, friends, and welcome to day 8.
Your brain's spinning already.
Yeah, day 8 of a 10-day placemaking festival called the Village Building Convergence, which is an annual event that a Portland nonprofit that I work for puts on. And normally over these 10 days, we do a few things. One, during the daytimes, we would normally be installing 35 to 50 different community installations, from street paintings to community gardens to earthen buildings. And with that, we always have evening events like this where we bring everyone together in a centralized location to share typically food and music, and have presenters who are doing beautiful community work share their practice. So of course, with the pandemic, we do not have our normal daytime installations happening, but with online platforms, we have been able to move forward with having still to have shared time together in the evening. Which I want to give a big shout out to Southeast Uplift, which is a neighborhood coalition in Portland that gave City Repair a grant that is helping make this happen. So thank you, Southeast Uplift. Check them out. They've always got amazing programs, amazing grants. And yeah, so day 8, and for much of the VBC, for about half of it so far, Michael, I'm sorry, let me take a step back. I should have written this down.
You got this, Kirk, you got this.
So, practicing master artist Michael Bernard Stevenson Jr.
That's me.
Yes. Has come on as a artist in residence and community organizer for the VBC, and has been curating a few nights so far, and along with tonight, tomorrow morning, and tomorrow evening, and then Sunday evening. So we've got a few more events, which we'll drop a link to our villagebuildingconvergence.com website to catch all that. We've been happily working with Michael, who has had a relationship with City Repair for a few years now, and is also my roommate, which has made organizing and putting this on post-pandemic super easy, because everything we intended to do for the Village Building Convergence now, most of it just kind of fell away, not possible. So I'm working with Michael. We've been able to not only still have the type of event that we want, but provide some amazing programming, bringing some amazing artists, community organizers, and with that, let me just hand it off to you, Michael.
Great, thank you. Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to be doing this event and to be presenting this content, and to be featuring some other kind of workers in the food industry. So I guess, yeah, let me notify that everyone's in the room. Carlos and Abram, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes. Hi, I'm Abram Bañuelos.
Hola, mi nombre es Carlos Reynoso.
And we do a pop-up in Portland called Mis Tacones.
My pronouns are he, him.
Pronouns they, them.
Excellent. Thank you. So glad to have you all. They're going to do a presentation tonight as well. And then Erica, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm always nervous. No one can hear me. My name is Erica Escalante, and I own the Era Coffee House on MLK in Alberta in Northeast Portland. My pronouns are she, her. Her, yeah.
Excellent. So glad to have you. So yeah, I will do a little prefacing of Kirk's preface or a sub-preface. Kirk and we started to collaborate on doing online programming, and we're thinking of this common theme of community building, and so are pinging different larger umbrellas in my own practice. And then each of the nights, we also invited other artists and cultural workers who are doing some of that same work to kind of like broaden the scope of that understanding for the audience, and to kind of also broaden the scope of what people are thinking art can do or be doing, or how community can be built or is being built. And so tonight I will be featuring a bunch of individual projects and kind of offering some of the kind of conceptual frameworks of understanding in my work, and we'll invite the other presenters to do the same. But I'm really excited about this group. Kurt, you gotta be admitting, what are you doing? No bell, there's no bell. Yeah, really excited about the different work that everyone's doing. And another thing that's gonna happen is we're gonna have another facilitator jump in at some point, whose name is Jordan, and he will be talking about a time capsule project, and we're going to reflect on recipes and stories about food as time capsule content. So there's additional prefacing in the slideshow, so I'll just, excuse me, share that and continue to say things. How's that looking on the experiencers end?
We can
Good.
see.
Love it. Building community through gathering around food. This, as I was kind of starting to talk about, is extremely important. It is also kind of interesting in a specific context where every human or culture in the history of human existence has gathered around food. Food is so unifying, but also kind of such a relatable, or an opportunity for relation, it's a relatable experience and an opportunity to relate to others. And that is something that is important to me and of interest to me in my practice. And for me, in all my work, and I just have kept reusing this slide for all of the different facets of my work, where I come from and who I am is so much of an influence, and with food, that is also this true for all of us. And for me specifically, I'm also going to surprise myself to see where my slideshow goes. A lot of that is very specifically channeled through my grandmother's, and this is a photo of me and my mother, but on the right, a photo of me, my grandmother, and some other members of my family, including my father. And so man, my keyboard just doesn't want to work in this style. Anyway, for both my paternal and maternal grandmothers, I learned a signature dish, you might say. And yeah, Kirk, if you want to start blasting the websites, my website is going to get linked. But also these tattoos, there's a documentary of me getting the tattoo on my left arm, your right. They, to me, symbolize my coat of arms on my arms. And so these dishes were recipes that I learned from my paternal and maternal grandmothers. And I was really interested when my grandmother, Louise, the tattoo on the right arm, your left, passed away. I really wanted to get a tattoo of pancakes, but I didn't want to just get like a stack of flapjacks. I wanted to get the tattoo, or the pancake is like a thin pancake, and it's really crispy and has crispy edges, and you could see that on the pancake. And so I wanted this tattoo to really be like my grandmother's food. And so I asked the tattoo artist to come to my home, and I made the pancakes for him. And then he ate them and photographed the pancakes. And then unbeknownst to me, I went to the tattoo shop, and he used the photograph as the image, and pretty much image transferred the photograph on my arm. And so that was such an amazing experience that when I got my maternal grandmother's dish tattooed on my inner left arm, I shot this documentary where I went to the Brooklyn pork store where my family used to get the ingredients. I got all the ingredients. I made the dish at my friend's house. I brought the dish to the tattoo parlor. We had a huge spread, and the tattoo artist made the plate, photographed it, ate it, and the next day tattooed the tattoo. So that is all a part of the documentary, and I talk more about kind of the heritage and kind of like getting that imbued onto my body. And again, that is again thinking of like recipes as a record, and I think about like at someday when I have children, like these images will be an interesting juxtaposition for them. They will see it marked on my skin, and then also will be like consuming the meals and then learn to make it themselves, kind of building into this, to not only my own life, but the people that I'm interacting with, building in this like deeper narrative of heritage and ancestry through food specifically. This is my maternal grandmother taking a somewhat posed image, or I'm being posed. My grandmother doesn't know how to pose. She's just, there's like a lot of photos of her kind of like looking around. But anyway, this is her seeing the tattoo for the first time. And on the table is actually a dish I made for my late grandfather. I asked him, I said, what is your favorite food? And he's like very curmudgeon-y. And so I couldn't get an answer. And at some point he's like, rapini. And so I went to the store and got rapini and made a sausage and rapini dish. Again, kind of, and I had never made rapini in my life or for him, but was like a moment where kind of this experience of the transferal of knowledge and recipe was happening in my own active life before he passed away. And then thinking about taking that story and those stories and those meals and then sharing them with younger generations. This is a young man named Elijah who I collaborate with often. And he was like, I want to make pasta. And it's funny, I've had a lot of kids say that they want to make pancakes. They definitely do not know I have tattoos of these things, but then becomes interesting later. And then this is a project that I was like, it was remiss to mention, and I added it kind of late. I will be talking all about the Afro-Contemporary art class tomorrow, which the link is also in the link list. But these are two girls, Gracie and Olivia, who were members of the Afro-Contemporary art class, and we did a reproduction of the Black Panther breakfast program at King School, which I will go into very extreme depth tomorrow. So folks, feel free to join that. But I also wanted to include this because one of our gracious guests, Erica Escalante of Coffee, catered the whole event. I went over there and I said, can I get some coffee? She was like, you can have it all. I'm gonna get you some sausage and you some bacon. So she catered the whole event, and that was really amazing. And kind of, again, building community and gathering around food. And it was interesting talking to, I think, Paige, who's here, one of the teachers at King School, about how now that we're distancing, how can we really build community in a distant way? So even before, like, you know, before we were having a racial pandemic, we were having a physical distancing pandemic, and just thinking about kind of the importance of gathering around food. So anyway, I'm currently finishing up my graduate degree, so not yet master, but practicing master. And one of the ways I like to talk about food as a medium is using food as a medium and using food and gathering around it as an art medium, to kind of help contextualize that understanding for viewers who are not necessarily thinking of non-art materials as art, but even, you know, beyond that. So one of my really early projects is called the Ice Cream Speakeasy, pinging both speakeasy culture and the prohibition on raw milk. This is in the bottom left, Jerry Snyder, who owns a family farm. And it's like 60 plus, who knows, maybe 80 years. He bought the farm from his father, and he, as he would say, has got a week back, and his many child family is coming into place to kind of bring that farm up and expand kind of their offerings. But I used to talk to him a lot about food and quality of food and wellness related to food, and that raw milk was a controlled substance. And I could talk about this project forever, but was one of the foundational elements of trying to figure out how to get the context of the food medium into the conceptual framing of my art practice. And so I merged the premise of a speakeasy, which is an illegal underground bar, with handmade ice cream made from raw milk, which was double illegal because you can't sell it and you can't make a prepared product from it. And as you can see from people's smiling faces, that it was delicious. Another early project I did was called Tables for Two. And this is a project with many iterations. The first of which was in Alfred, New York, where I went to college. For Valentine's Day, I essentially curated different tables or individual seated tables of two. And all of the four-course meal was sourced locally, which was like a talking point and was included in the menu. And I had a lot of helpers, and people were able to enjoy the intimacy of their own community space, and to kind of like make even more precious their experience due to the arrangement and the non-normativity of it, which is interesting too, because we were in a small town and there wasn't a lot of places to go anyway. So this was like very special in a lot of ways, just by way of making access. And so I've done many iterations, the next iteration of which was in Florida, and then another iteration I did in Austin. I realized that there could be all these bells and whistles. The Florida version had candles and like all the stuff and the things. And then the Austin version, I was just actually visiting two friends and we decided to really like make a do. And then I was kind of featuring a small version of Tables for Two. So just thinking about it is the framing, and it isn't the scale or the intensity or the magnitude. It's just the framing that kind of can turn a meal from just something you're doing in your kitchen to something that's a little bit more significant and can be shared. And again, those stories exist for all of us in relation to our meals. So I took that and I started to really invest in that project, and I did it specifically in a very tailored. I did the bells and whistles version for just one couple, a mother and her son, and was thinking about kind of just what the project could really expand to include. And so I was asked for the meal to be totally vegan. And so I was trying to make a vegan menu while also impressing the palate of a 5-year-old boy. So we've got some falafel with 2 different kinds of hummuses. We've got this miso soup with dinosaur-shaped pasta. We got tofu that's cookie cutter dinosaur style with a forest of greens behind it, and then avocado mousse with blueberries. They were all a hit. And what I learned from this project is like the intimacy of someone's home, this opportunity to kind of remove the burden of preparing a meal for the mother and parent, and they were able to like enjoy bedtime and enjoy bath time. And I was kind of doing all this labor around making this extravagant meal, and they said this is the best meal they'd had in their home. And I did another iteration with a similar paradigm, Table for 2 + 1. This was my cousin, their partner, and their, I believe at the time, 1 to 2-year-old son named Vincent. And so each of the dishes was another kind of special meal, but each one of the 3 plates was plated up for a 2-year-old. So in this instance, we have little fragments of bread with carrot potato soup on top, which Vincent loved. And the parents also mentioned that Vincent was like crushing like every plate. And he was like, he's never eaten food like this before. We had a penne alla vodka sauce, loved it. And then we had pot roast with shiitake mushrooms, potatoes, and some Swiss chard, which we learned that I did not cut the mushrooms small enough, and he was choking. It was scary, and I ran out of the kitchen and stubbed my toe, but he survived. And then dessert of pancakes, of course, because I love me some pancakes. But really just thinking about, again, the food is an important part of this project. And it's interesting, I was like recording a video, my camera like slipped like right after the first 10 seconds. And so the whole table's not visible and they're speaking in German. But I wanna translate the video because so much of the work is actually about the people. It's actually about the experience. It's the ability, and I was with them for a few weeks. And so they were always scrambling and taking care of the kid and trying to make the meal and going to work. And I was like, this was a moment where they could really make space for themselves. To just enjoy the moment, and that's what the project is about. And in this kind of work, I'm also always thinking about where the products come from, but also like what kind of waste I'm generating and how I can also kind of like zero carbon emission style compost or whatever. But yeah, just thinking about where the food comes from and what's left behind, which is actually how I got into using food as a medium in the first place. I was interested in alleviating the carbon footprint of my artistic practice. And so I was using reclaimed materials for a while, and then I just kind of moved away from material-based projects altogether, which is what has me in working in a social space now. And then also thinking about labor. That was like an epic day. That was like 4 courses that I cooked in a German kitchen in Germany and was like shopping in markets and stuff. I mean, we shopped the day before, but it was a lot of energy. I think I did end up getting some help in the kitchen. But yeah, just thinking about the energy that goes into food and food preparation, especially channeling grandmotherly energy, which I will kind of dig into later in this presentation. So another big project I did early on, once I started to be practicing in an academic context, was belated birthday. And I had a precedence, of course I didn't include any of those slides, with making a birthday meal for myself, so I was practicing tables for 2 and ice cream speakeasy in kind of like a New Yorker region. And I came back to Maryland and I was visiting with friends, and there was not a social culture in my time in DC metro area, like an at-home share meal, not in a restaurant culture. And I was really missing that. And so I used my birthday as an excuse to like force everyone into the same room. And I wasn't doing that. I was doing that in an epic scale, and it was well documented, but I wasn't vividly aware of it being a part of my practice. But when I moved to Oregon and I was like spending a lot of time with artists and in an art context, I wanted to invite all of the people in my program to a meal and also kind of like essentially invite them into an artwork space, this private, intimate, at-home space that was based on my practice with food. And I used my birthday, and I was trying to schedule it on my birthday, and I couldn't schedule it on my birthday, so it became belated birthday party, which is also interesting because you can bring kind of emphasis to any time, including a non-holiday. And so once again, we are reappearing with the meatballs and sauce, but this is a very interesting context. If you can see these Star of Davids on the table, this meal ended up getting prepared in the home of a friend, collaborator, co-student, peer named Shoshana Guggenheim, who their kitchen, this is Shoshana, they keep kosher in their kitchen. And I was like, I want to make meatballs. And it was like a wild moment where they were just like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. And I was like, well, I can get kosher meat. And we got kosher meat from Seattle, and it was brought here. And they're like, okay, we'll chance it. And so the first step was to kosher everything. So we had to boil water, which was in the last shot, and then we poured it over everything. And then we did that at the end as well. And everything was set out to dry, and then we're like, boom, let's get this going, these meatballs. And then Andrew, Shoshana's husband, jumped in and was getting the meatball stuff together. And then they had like an exchange student, and they were helping decorate, and they were invited to the belated birthday. And then this was a magical moment. So we're like in the kitchen, I'm cooking all day, getting stuff ready. And this is Shoshana's children. And I don't think they had ever had a meatball. And if they had, it was never in the home. This is their first meatball, I recall now. And so there was a tradition in my family called stealing the meatball. And when grandma's making the meatball sauce, you go in the kitchen, it's like lunchtime, it's kind of boiling away. You're like, I'm hungry, I want a meatball. You're like, okay, don't tell anyone. You like sneak a meatball out, and usually you're aided by an adult. And so I helped them steal a meatball, and this is them eating their first ever meatball, later which we sang the meatball song. Which was actually all they knew about meatballs, was cloudy with a chance of meatballs. And so I made a vegan sauce and a meat sauce, and we was all ready to go, and folks started to arrive, and we're starting to have a good time, get some talking going on. We got around the table, and this is me kind of saying a lot of the things that I was saying to you, and kind of during the meal, I kind of invited everyone to talk about an instance where there was a mixing of culture taking place. which I kind of told the story about me making my traditional meatball meal, but it was in this kosher kitchen. I had to get the special meat and then they steal a meatball. So I kind of told them the story where I was sharing culture in this meal itself. This meal was a symbol of kind of an exchange of culture. And we talked about the prompt, and while people were talking at the table, I like escaped to the kitchen, and I was hanging out with Hadar, Shoshana's daughter, and I gave her the camera, and I was flipping pancakes, and she was flipping pancakes, and then I showed her my pancake tattoo and the pancakes, and so just again, kind of compounding these family recipes and these things that have lots of history, and then reintroducing this into the lives of other people and carrying the stories with them. There was a couple folks who couldn't attend the event, and so we also packaged some to-go meals. And it's again this interesting premise of like taking all of that energy. You could just say it was a meal, but it wasn't just a meal. It was this project with all these other nuances, and we kind of like that's carried in the food and can be shared with people further and wider than we're even attending. And again, thinking of labor, cleaning up, and the waste we leave behind. And I did another, this is Belated Birthday 2, T-O-O, which is another link that's in the thing, or a belated birthday generally is a link that could be shared. And this dish is Puerto Rican beef stew that I learned from my aunt, Elba, who's Puerto Rican Ecuadorian. And this is the third iteration, Belated Birthday also, where I made Labskaus, which is a German dish that was prepared for me by the cousins who I made Table for 2 + 1 for. And it was interesting too, because, and well, I'll go back in a second, but it was interesting because at the time I was not eating carbs. This is actually like supposed to be mashed potatoes with beets, pickled beets. That's the purple guy. And there's like a roll mops, which is like a pickled fish, and there's stuff in there, and there was an egg. And my cousin's wife made special for me the Labskaus made with broccoli, which was amazing. And so I actually made the broccoli cauliflower version for these friends who are also in my academic community. And this is a friend on the computer who was in Ohio, and we Skyped her in to join this event. So again, we weren't eating the same food, but we were sharing space. We were gathering around the food, building community. And I forgot to add, this is there was stories shared, but this I continue to use that prompt of the mixing of culture. And this is Sam Sloan, who actually shot the Sustenance and Spectacle documentary, who's shooting a documentary as I'm documenting them, documenting me. And this is their husband, Andrew Sloan Wickert, who was a soldier in Afghanistan, and his story was about buying food from the market and making food with Afghani families and kind of like bridging this awkward gap between the military and the Afghan families. So that was really amazing. And it's interesting thinking about birthdays and this micro scale. This is a project about a friend named Bugs. And Bugs and I met at Standing Rock. This is me in Bismarck, North Dakota, with the beginning of my Wild Dew. And Bugs has many food allergies. And while we were in North Dakota at the camps of Osheti-Shakowin on the unceded lands of the Lakota Sioux, Bugs was surviving on cheese and mayonnaise and other not very healthy foods to survive. And Bugs was doing a lot of caretaking as an herbalist, was holding space for many. And I did what I can to support Bugs in other ways, but when we finished at camp and were evicted by militant government force, we were in a safe house in Bismarck, and this is me making a vegetable lasagna for Bugs for their birthday. And this is a little montage. A couple years ago, they were like, I'm turning 40. I'm still kind of like burning out from being in Standing Rock. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. They didn't have anywhere that they were living more permanently. And so I pinged them on Facebook and I was like, what do you need? And that's my dog's mom. I flew, we convened in Columbus, Ohio at another friend's house, and I re-performed this vegetable lasagna for them. And here's the golden brown tops and the nice juicy inside. And then just this kind of poetic shot. I actually didn't ever document their face because I was starting to think about how some of these projects, the stories and the nuances around them, and I think Bugs's birthday is another link, Kirk, it can be captured without the identity of the individuals, because I also want people to feel comfortable in the space. And so also Bugs's identity, Bugs is not their legal name. Part of my relationship with them is preserving their identity from the forces that be. I did another project. So there's a way where it can be intimate and personal, and then there's ways where food work can be more broad. This is me cooking in a kitchen, getting ready for a project called Won't You Be My Neighbor, which I did in my former alma mater in a town called Alfred. And this was a project where I was collaborating with artists, and I had this event called the Gathering of Artists, where I made, again, pancakes and waffles, and we had some ice cream. I'm into themes. I have an ice cream addiction, don't tell anyone. And I hosted in a gallery space. And again, I'm also thinking about my food in visual art space, like thinking about food as my medium. If a gallery says, we'd love to buy a painting from you, I was like, well, I got pancakes. How can we get that worked? And so I hosted the event in the gallery, and I met with the artists. And then the nature of the project was to pair these artists with community members. And so these are kind of the old world caucus of the local community. This is Elliot and Jessen, who are mentors of mine, both in their 60s or more. This is the curator's husband. This is Nadine Hoover, was born and raised in Alfred and is a Quaker from the community and does a lot of convening around food as well. Their daughter, this is Patrick Power. I was around when he was born. This is Fred, one of my mentors. Curator, these are local farmers. Some of the ingredients were from their farm. So inviting community members to the table and using that as a platform to invite them to participate in this larger project. And so these are the meals I made. There was a couple Russian guests, so I made a borscht from their beets, more Sunny Cove Farm beef, again, continuing to like tap into the families who I've developed relationships with and confidence in their pockets and their products. Greens from Living Acres Farm. And then also, I wanted to make ice cream, but everyone's like, that's a liability. You can't use raw milk. And I was like, come on. And so I couldn't do it, but we got some goat milk ice cream sandwiches, or actually it was ice cream. That was the only photo I had. Anyway. And then, so again, thinking about convening people around food, this is the graduate employee union, and I was a graduate employee, and I was meeting with a group, and they're like, okay, we're trying to form, we like need more people, like let's get them organized, like drop a banner. And I was like, can we feed people? Like, I think if you want people to do anything for you, you probably should feed them. And so I convened a few events. This was the first event I co-planned with them, the Winter Warmer Soup and Schmooze. And I made 2 kinds of soup. I made a squash soup and a chicken soup. And we had graduates come. It was at the Native American Student and Community Center. Love to host at sites that, you know, have significance in that context. And we spoke about the different events and things going on. We did another event. This actually later this evening was bring a bag lunch to the negotiation table. And it's actually an interesting archival thought. I don't know if anyone's thinking about it now, but is in the archive that we actually signed the contract to form. And so this like action, this political action, where that was based around lunch, was actually one of the kind of seal the deal moments for this contract for them to form as a union. And then there's also an adjunct union, and so was looking to develop an enhanced amount of solidarity between the PSUFA and the GEU unions. And so we hosted a meal for kind of some of the administrators to get together and just take a load off. And so I also, again, as I've pinged, am really thinking about my work in a professional art, academic, in all the places. It's not just something for the kitchen, it's something that started in the kitchen in my grandmother's kind of recipe books. I'm now trying to bring this vernacular and this language into academia, into the contemporary art scene. So this is me doing a performative lecture. I had a lecture going on up in the left, but in front of them while I was presenting my materials, also making oatmeal. which I love to make because it's so simple and you can add all these fixins and you can put stuff out. And so I made oatmeal while the students were listening to me talk, and then they came up and got oatmeal. And then later I set up some tables in their art gallery, and then I did this like performative demo where I taught students how to cook these different meals using seconds, and they were prepping it with me and cutting the kind of rough spots of the potatoes out. And I got, again, support from Living Acres Farm and Local Bread. And then I produced all of this stuff in a gallery space and served the students as my work, right? Performing. And also, if people have questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We can visit them later. So anyway, one of the things that I was doing at this event, right, this was Spencer Burns series, who's in the chat right now or in the room, made this publication all about food. Mis Tacones is also featured in this publication. But I was just doing a lot of what I'm doing now, contextualizing kind of the background elements to what I'm doing with my food as art practice. And so when I was at this university setting, I actually had this text, I provided this text to them to kind of think about and kind of further unpack my practice in that way. This is interesting because this was more recent, I think one of the more recent projects in what I've presented. But this was the birth of Grandmother's Kitchen, which is just kind of formalizing all of the things that I've been doing before. And so now I do all of my work under the food, all of my work under the food as a medium and gathering around it, under the moniker of Grandmother's Kitchen. And so during this, I was thinking, again, very specifically about the labor, thinking very specifically about women, grandmothers, usually, right, the context, like not, I mean, I'm not female gendered, but right, was very much kind of inspired by matriarchs in my family and the history of kind of this gender divisive form of kind of like food preparation and home care, and thinking a lot about domesticity and these other things as practices and masteries and things of repute and value, and how this labor is done and is in ways exhaustive and often not compensated and often not recognized beyond saying, and so I documented this event. I have more images even beyond this GIF image, but was thinking step by step about each thing that I was doing because I was catering this larger event. And so I made all the stuff, and then bing, bang, boom. And then I like, boom, jammed it in the fridge, which was another kind of designed element to do all the prep the day before, and then just boom, oven mode for the day of, and show up to this event with some hot food. And then bing, bang, boom, we got lasagna, we got the macaroni, we got the gluten-free style, we got the gluten style. And also the lasagna and the macaroni, I was kind of pinging a duet of grandmothers, a pasta-based dish from each of my matrilineal lines, and then documenting people drawing it into themselves, right? And so a lot of the original inspirations for this work was actually around nourishment. It's like, okay, I want a low carbon footprint, and I want to nourish people, right? I want my work for people to come away with the work with something. And so in this instance, people are bringing their artwork, my artwork, into their bodies, and it's nourishing them. And again, just kind of thinking of what's left behind, but not just what's left behind, like what left, right? The work is still in people's bodies, it's in people's minds, and it lives on. And again, thinking about the recipe living on even more beyond the calories offered in that meal. So that is my last slide, but is also kind of meant to set the container, because I curated these other folks into this presentation because I feel like these people are doing the same work that I am, and just talk about it differently, and that are inspired with different kind of ancestral lines. So I'd like to again introduce Mis Tacones to do their thing and share their work with you. But thank you all for listening and getting the tone set.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really, really love hearing and seeing your work, and it's been so wonderful to see the evolution from when I've met you to now and you talking about your work. The last slide, you saying that that the work, your artwork, is nourishing people and it lives on to that experiences. I feel like that's very profound. It's very powerful. I love that. Thank you so much for presentation was beautiful. It was great. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Just know, I know you all are doing the same thing.
So I'm going to share my screen here in a sec. So how we're going to do this, so like I said earlier, we're Mis Tacones. Abram's my partner. We've been doing this project for close to 5 years now. So I consider, and I think it's very important to kind of tell our roles within the project. I see myself as a community organizer, artist, within the project. So I'm going to start my presentation and kind of giving you all a historical like timeline of the project, the basis of the project, and all the symbolism behind this business, this food business, and where it started, where it is now, and how it's evolved. So if you want to talk about your role, bro.
My name is Abram Bañuelos. I mainly I'm the head chef, cook. I basically get all of these recipes from like my family, like my mom, my aunts, my sister. Also similar to you, Michael, like the matriarchs in my family had a huge role for me growing up and learning the things that I've learned. So basically, I turn all of these recipes and I make them vegan and present them at Mis Tacones.
Great. So I'm gonna share my screen here. So I had some slides that I was gonna show, but I just realized that they're off my Instagram. So I am gonna just use my Instagram to kind of can y'all see my screen?
Yes, we can. And I can't remember if you said this word yet. Have you said vegan yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so here is our Instagram. I'm going to be using this as visuals for our project. So I'm going to scroll down here and kind of take you to the early beginnings.
The early beginnings of Mis Tacones.
So like Abram mentioned, we've been very inspired by the matriarchs in our family. I am an immigrant, and I'm going to talk about my relationships with the project, with this through my identity and my role with the project. So I grew up in Los Angeles. I'm an immigrant, and Abram and I 5 years ago moved to Portland, Oregon. And moving from Los Angeles to Portland was very challenging in the sense that we went from living in a very richly diverse city to a very, very white city. And it was kind of a huge culture shock for us. I moved up here because my main role has always been a community organizer. I'm a social worker. So I got a job up here at Cascade AIDS Project. And we decided to make the move up here to Portland. So within the first year of living in Portland, we realized that it kind of lacked the cultural landscape that we're very used to back in Los Angeles. I grew up in Huntington Park. I have family in East Los Angeles. So POC, Latinx, cultural landscape, cultural background has been a huge part of my identity growing up, and also the street food culture has been a huge part of our identity, my identity, and I think Abram and I both felt that was something that was missing in Portland, so we decided to create that for ourselves. That's kind of how the project, how Mis Tacones got started. So we really wanted to establish some kind of outdoor food business, taco pop-up that you would normally find in East Los Angeles, that you would find, in Baja California, where I was born. We really wanted that. It wasn't just this need for that food, because everyone could cook that at home. It was kind of carving out this cultural landscape that we felt was missing. So these are the very, very early um, imagery, aesthetic for the project. So we have Mis Tacones is, in Spanish is my high heels, but it could also be my big tacos in Spanish. So we're both queer individuals, that's a huge part of our identity as well. So we really, really wanted to use that aesthetic with the project, and how we used, imagery, how we documented our signage, and promoted upcoming events, upcoming pop-ups. So this is an early image that was taken for a pop-up that we did a couple of years ago. Everything was very DIY. That's sorry, here. How to go back? Yeah. So here we go. So I'm gonna. Okay. Here's another image here. So so we started doing a lot of pop-ups and events at queer dance parties in Portland. That's kind of how we got started. And we really, really, really use our queer identity. We really wanted to create our aesthetic to kind of be really, really authentic to those very working class taco setups that we would normally see in neighborhoods that we grew up in. Where a lot of these families are undocumented. A lot of the times they don't have access to resources like commissary kitchens. They're making food for their community. They're selling it, and they're very vulnerable to police, they're really vulnerable to police interactions where their businesses get shut down, and they get pretty much, fined and taken down for selling and being vendors in the community. So we use that aesthetic as our business because we felt that was both a huge issue in Los Angeles during that time. So when we did our taco truck, our taco business, we just popped up. We were at these queer parties. It was very DIY. It was very simple. We just kind of wanted to have, share this cultural thing with people here in Portland. So we had tables. We went out and Abram and I, kind of funded everything ourselves. We had no access to resources then when it came to like finding our steam trays and all of that. So we kind of just did it because we wanted to really carve out this cultural space for ourselves here in Portland. So I'm gonna show you more images of pop-ups. Back in 2016, back in 2016, 2017, we actually got the opportunity to do weekly pop-ups outside of the vegan mini strip mall. The vegan mini strip mall is a vegan strip mall here in Portland, Oregon. We were very grateful to have had friends from Food Fight who saw our vision, saw what we were about. We really wanted to share this street food culture in Portland. We wanted to share this this business in Portland. So they gave us the opportunity to pop up weekly out in the vegan mini strip mall. So this is an image of our early early spot. We were there for 2 summers, and we would pop up sometimes twice a week. So it'd be Saturdays or Sundays, sometimes both Saturdays and Sundays. Abram and I were both working full-time jobs, 40 hours a week, and on top of that, prepping 60. I mean, it was like a 60 to 80-hour work week with our full-time jobs and Mis Tacones. So for us, we were fueled by the love and the passion for this business, and also, like I said, really kind of creating a street food culture like we did, that was familiar to us back in Los Angeles and Baja California. Yeah, 31.
Yeah, so I mean, as you can see from our social media, our Instagram presence, yes, we're very loud about our culture, about basically we're very loud about being queer, and I feel like naming our business and starting our business, I wanted to I guess portray something like very personal and very very, very intimate, like a real authentic part of myself and Carlos. So I mean, we decided to, um, not separate our queerness and not separate our Chicano-ness, and just kind of bring this out there to the forefront, because I mean, that's our culture. This is a part of who we are, and this is I mean, it's something that's super important to us to be able to kind of like bring out there, and not hide behind like machismo, or just not hide behind what people want us to be or to portray. So it's very in your face, and we're very proud and happy um, about the way that we've done things, and just kind of being a part of this community. So let's see. We have a lot of images here where we've like collaborated with certain people for like really special events. Right here we have like one of our pop-ups at Food Fight, which is really cool. I mean, it's really awesome to see like the community respond, and just kind of like be there for us, and just we have this really cool spot at the Vegan Mini Mall, let's see. We had a lot of regulars that showed up every Saturday and Sunday. Just kind of like they love the nostalgia. They love they love just that sense of familiarity that we have. A lot of it came from.
Hey!
It's a cute video. Yeah. So we had people come from like LA and San Diego and stuff that have been following us for like a while, because they were like, oh my God, I love you guys. I love your aesthetic. I love what you guys represent and what you're bringing to the table. And it was really important for me to create these recipes that were so personal, because there's this intense sense of nostalgia and relatability that that I love. Like, we can have people come over and talk about the authenticity of the food. Like, wow, these tacos are amazing. This picture right here that we're showing right here is a collaboration that we were doing with Alicia. She owns Los Gorditos, and we put on a collaboration for to defend DACA, and kind of raise funds to to get people going, get people through like the education and everything. This is a picture of us in the kitchen. It was a really, really awesome event that we did. A lot of the stuff that we do is very political, like this event, because we want to make sure that we have those voices out there.
Yeah, so in the last 2 years, we've been working to develop our business, to develop Mis Tacones, and have it evolve more than just a pop-up or a like a pop-up or taco business that just pops up once a week. And we actually bought a food truck. So last summer, we purchased this food truck, and we had space at the outside of Jet Black coffee shop over in a Gateway area of Portland. We were renting that space there, and it was a very challenging summer for us, being people of color, and also just funding this project or this business on our own. We faced a lot of challenges, so that was very challenging for us to kind of keep it going, and to get funding for repairs for our food truck. Abram has did the Mercy Corps, and they have done classes, and have done all kinds of workshops for them to give us a grant. So we are hoping to get a grant that's going to help us repair and do construction for our food cart. So we're hoping that our business will evolve. And I'm really excited for Abram, because Abram's taking on Mis Tacones as a first-time business owner, and really working towards getting that established and getting that up and going, hopefully in the near future. Here's another collaboration we did a couple of years ago. We did the Queer Señora with the Q Center, which is a really fun event. We've throughout the years in Portland, we've done a lot of collaborations with various organizations. And again, you know, Abram and I both love being partners with community members. You know, it's it's another level to what we do with Mis Tacones. You know, we like to build community. We like to collaborate. We want to empower queer identities. We want to empower POC and Latinx communities. That's kind of been the basis of what we've done and what we hope to do. And also throughout the years, we've added items and menu items to what we normally would offer. This is a torta that we do. Everything is 100% vegan. You know, we use various types of proteins. Abram has their own protein recipe for the seitan we use. Seitan is a wheat-based protein that's very similar in texture to beef or chicken. You know, we also we've experimented with other proteins that are gluten-free. So we do offer gluten-free options. We offer, you know, everything's vegan, but we try to definitely have various options for people that come to our stand. I'm gonna scroll up here a little more. Sorry, just bear with me. Here. So we did this one community event called the Queer Swap Meet. And it was actually one of our largest community event that we did. Let me find the video here.
Yeah, it was a really cool event. Kind of gave us a chance to bring together the communities. This is a little promo video.
¿Qué tenemos, DJ? Rápidamente. Que comience la fiesta. Mesa, mesa, mesa que más aplauda. Mesa que más aplauda. Mesa que más aplauda. Le mando la niña. Mesa que más aplauda, sí. Mesa que más aplauda, no. Mesa que más aplauda. Le mando la niña. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Tú me aplaudes, que tú me aplaudes, sa. Tú me aplaudes, que tú me aplaudes, sa. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Sa, yakuza, yakuza. Tú me aplaudes, sa.
All right, so that was a really awesome event. The Queer Swap Meet was really cool. We were able to bring together a bunch of new vendors. For most of the vendors that we had there, if not all of them, it was actually their first pop-up. And we wanted to be able to kind of like use our platform and use our space to provide this opportunity for these like new businesses that were starting out to just kind of go out there and, you know, present themselves and present what they have to offer. Everybody is really cool, super family oriented. They also have their like wonderful family recipes or just other things that they were bringing, like little trinkets that they were selling. Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. I loved it. I had so much fun at the event.
So I'm gonna
TBA ones.
So we've done TBA. We did it last TBA last year, and we were also part of a roundtable discussion with a good friend of ours who does Peruvian vegan fusion food called oh my god. Mija. I apologize. My brain has been very slow the last couple of weeks with everything going on in the world, so I apologize if I kind of freeze up. But sorry about that. Yeah, we were part of this table discussion on talking about queerness, food, identity, and just talking about the work that we do, you know, and our food businesses, and also being people of color and being first-time business owners and the different hardships and hurdles and barriers that one faces when trying to get established in doing a business. So it was a very good opportunity to talk about our work, talk about our identity as cooks, artists, you know, and our roles in the community and how we like to, you know, empower community as well with what we do as with our businesses and with these projects. I'm gonna scroll up here for a sec and talk about an event that we did very recently, actually with Arrow Coffee Shop. I'm gonna go up, just bear with me. Okay. Here we go. So this past February, I'm gonna play demo video that we did for this event.
It was a Valentine's dinner. It was a four-course dinner that we put together, hosted at the amazing Arrow Coffee. Thank you, Erica. It was an amazing event too. It was really beautiful. I love the turnout.
There's a promo
video. That video was basically a teaser for what was to come in February, so this picture right here is a picture of the empanadas. It's one of the dishes that we served. This dish actually was really special to me because it's a mole that I created. It's very similar to a mole poblano. It was actually my first go at doing the mole myself, and I was very, very proud of it. The empanadas that are, I think on this picture, they were filled with like, they had zucchini, carrots, and like cashew crema, bunch of amazing, delicious Mexican spices. Yeah, I was really, really proud of that dish, and I was really proud to serve it at the dinner, as well as the pozole that we had. The pozole was it's my mom's recipe. Only made vegan. Those things are very, very special to me also. Kind of takes me back to like that nostalgia of like being a kid and having pozole for like the holidays. And, you know, after, you know, being vegan and not being able to like have these things and just kind of convert these dishes vegan and being able to share that with everybody. So for the other like new vegans or newish vegans or other people that just haven't had you know, a cruelty-free version of this food, because you know, life is precious, animal life is precious, is why we became vegan. And having these memories, having people approach me and telling me, you know, how this made them feel. Like, wow, I haven't had this dish in such a long time, because it's usually made with like goat or beef or chicken, and for them to have this special feeling of tasting this dish was really awesome. And here we have a picture of the dessert that we served, the conchas, made by Theo's Bakery, collaboration with Ice Queen, Rebecca on the right, and my awesome, amazing roommate on the left. Let's see. Okay, this was in the kitchen. This was in the kitchen at Arrow Coffee. It was really awesome to be able to work with everybody. It was really, you know, everybody just kind of like putting in so much work to make sure that this event happened. Kind of just like I had to like really, really take the lead, because this was my first like big event that I had ever put together. And kind of like being the boss and being in charge of everything was new to me, because I don't like being bossy. I just kind of like being in the background, just like cooking. But it was very special, and I was really proud of the event at the end of the day. Little thank you. Hi, I am the chef at Mis Tacones. I'm super excited that all of you are here. This is a very, very special event to me. My partner Carlos couldn't be here because he's homesick, so he's taking care of that. But I'm super excited that, you know, I feel like the turnout was great, and I hope you all have enjoyed so far. We have one more course ready for you. It's going to be our empanadas, served with mole, and our amazing queso con leche blanco. don't have to the dessert is a beautiful collaboration from Fields Bakery and Ice Cream. It's an ice cream sandwich concha. It's yeah, but I hope everybody's been enjoying dinner. And we also have this cute like star shots if y'all want to take a picture.
A longer video. Yeah. So where we are now, we had some events that we had planned, before COVID and before the shutdown of, businesses and all that. And it's kind of still up in the air, we're hoping that we could, do events in the future, and also just kind of adapt to how our new reality is, So Abram has the Mercy Corps grant that is available to us, and we're hoping to do repairs for our cart, and hopefully to continue to stay as a business in Portland, as a fixture, and maybe even do pickup orders. We're still kind of figuring out how to survive and how to stay as business owners, as people of color, still facing obstacles and
trying
hurdles.
To adapt and move forward, basically.
Yeah, trying to adapt and move forward and trying to evolve to our new reality. So this was the last event we did. It was a beautiful event. It was, I really enjoyed the planning and the marketing and the organizing and all that, and like Abram was there, and from what I heard from Abram and just people that worked, it was the energy and love that was manifested through this event was so beautiful, and that's the reason why we do it. I felt that in past events where there's so much work, there's so much sacrifice, there's so much that goes into putting on these events, So for me, the payoff is the magic that happens and that's manifested in the community. So having regulars come up, having people that are grateful and thankful to have cultural space, to have, queer space, to have space for people to feel, they're a part of something special. That to me is the payoff. That's why we do this. And manifesting that is very difficult. It's a lot of work. It's not just Abram and I. We feel like we're part of a community. We've carved out this community for ourselves. And that's kind of what we wanted to do this from the beginning. So it's so beautiful to see that happening and has happened in the past.
How can folks stay in touch with you all?
Yeah. You can reach out. You can follow us on our social media platform here on it's at Mis Tacones PDX right over here. It's the same thing on Facebook, and you can also email us at tacos@mistaconespdx.com.
That's an excellent email.
I know. Maybe you can put it up there in a bit.
Yeah. Cool. Is that? Thank you for sharing. That was really a wonderful ride. I don't know if I had gotten the story ever from the beginning. And what a great place to conclude. Erica. So for those who are not totally following, Erica Escalante is the proprietor of Arrow Coffee. And so she held space for Mis Tacones, and also, as I mentioned before, catered the Black Panther breakfast program. So everyone, and also has been very vocal about everything that's going on right now on her personal feed, and has been very supportive to Carlos and Abram and I, but also to her local community. So I'll let her talk about that. Welcome, Erica. Thanks for coming.
Well, hi. Thank you for having me today. It's really...
Oop. Seems like your sound is paused, at least for me. Am I? Kirk, are you here? Am I here?
At the age of 22.
There you go.
Are you okay? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay. So I started my company 7 years ago at the age of 22 is when I was able to open my first cafe. And I originally had a location in Clackamas County, and 3 years ago I was able to branch out and open my second cafe in Northeast Portland, right on the corner of MLK and Alberta. And this last year I ended up selling my first location so that now I can just focus on my Portland location. And I really, really just love my job. This is really hard work. And I have 2 small kids. I have 2 little girls. They're 6 and 1. And so you can imagine that we're like a very busy family. And I'm also first generation here. My family is from El Salvador. And so I think part of my story with my business and growing up, my family decided to move to a very white suburb from LA. So they moved from LA to a really white suburb to raise us in a very respectable, white kind of thing. And so I think growing up, it was always like a conflict of identity growing up of my parents didn't really speak a lot of Spanish in the home because they wanted to make sure that we spoke English and things like that. And so but as I've grown up and realized that I am Latina and I'm really proud of that, and my culture is different from other people, especially I married a white man, and I really realized our families and our culture is very, very different. And so that journey in my business as well has been really prominent. And so I want to show you my slideshow. Let's see. Okay. There we go, share. And we'll go here. Okay. So mostly I just have some pictures for you of the space, because the thing about having a brick and mortar establishment for food is that part of the experience and part of the community building really has to be in an intentional space curation, and the thing about the space that we're in, that particular corner, is that it is a gentrified neighborhood. It is a really nice building with the beautiful large windows and the beautiful ceiling and the exposed light, and it's attached to Me Fitness, which is a private independent gym that is a little more expensive. And so it was really conflicting when we got this space. It's really hard to get a space in Portland, let alone one that has a kitchen and everything else. And so from the beginning, my mind has always been on what do we do in our society, in our capitalistic society, when we're trying to run a business in a gentrified neighborhood. And I think when I first opened, I really didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a good budget. And so pretty much it was all Craigslist. But we have, you can see from this picture, it's just a beautiful space to begin with. It doesn't really need a lot. But at the same time, it looks so fancy and it's not really the most approachable thing for the neighborhood necessarily. And so I think it was just something that I've been thinking about from the beginning, is how can you build community with food when from the outside you look not approachable? And that has always been a struggle with this particular space and this business. And so I'll probably at the end talk to you about some changes we're making this year to make the space more welcoming to our community, because that's what our focus is on. So at the Arrow, we serve specialty coffee. Has been my main focus from the beginning. When I first opened my company, it was for specialty coffee. And the specialty coffee in itself is defined as coffee that is graded 80 and above. So all coffee that is produced is graded from 0 to 100. And so any coffee that is graded 80 and above is considered specialty coffee. It means that it was probably hand-picked, hand-sorted, hand-washed, or very carefully washed. It goes through specific processes that make sure that the flavor is really, really good, really pure, and really delicious. And so that comes with a price. And so the other thing that is the concern is that if we love specialty coffee, which is really the image of Black and brown excellence across the world, coffee comes from Black and brown people. And so specialty coffee is like is showcasing Black and brown excellence across the world. How do we do that again in a gentrified neighborhood and build community with that in our space? And so that has always been the concern, and we love our coffee so much, but it also comes at a premium price, and it also comes with lots of training and lots of years of skill and development and classes and those sorts of things. And so it's like, even just the milk, we study what the parts of the milk are in the actual, the makeup of milk, and what happens when we steam it, and how we get a texture that is really pleasant to the mouth, and how do we pour this beautiful art. All those things take time and practice, and it is a craft, and we love that craft. And I'm so proud of these coffees, especially now being in the industry for a while, meeting these farmers, meeting the producers, and going.
I had the audio cut for me. Erica, if you can hear me. Whatever you might have done to fix it last.
That's the best. Are you lost?
We're back.
Okay. What part did you hear last?
You answered my "Can I hear you?" the last thing I heard.
Oh no!
But whatever. We did lose like 30 seconds or so.
Okay. Okay. Shoot. How do I know if that happens again?
It's interesting. It seems like you can't hear me when it's happening. I can try to chat you, but whenever it happens, I will let you know.
Okay, cool.
But we heard a lot about the mouthfeel of the milk and things.
Okay, cool. So, all that to say is that coffee is a craft, and it feels conflicting because we love our community and we want to be approachable to them, but at the same time it is a craft element, and it's not necessarily affordable for everybody. And so a lot of the talk in the industry is about approachability.
We lost you again. If you can hear us or hear me.
We love our coffee. Right now we're serving Dead Stock Coffee Roasters, which is a Black-owned coffee roaster and one of my closest friends. And we also sell bags of beans from a few other roasters, and that just started for the COVID crisis because a lot of my friends shut down and I chose not to. And so I called them and said, what can I do to support you? I'm going to buy your bags and sell them to my customers. And we sell so many bags of coffee now, so there's plenty of business to go around. The other thing we do at Arrow is we make sandwiches. So we do breakfast and lunch sandwiches, and they're all very intentional and we thought really hard about it. We tried out a lot of recipes, and we really wanted to have a good food menu that felt like delicious, like super delicious, and like well done with good ingredients, but also something you can like eat in your car on your way to work. And so this is like our basic sandwich. It's our egg, bacon, cheese kind of thing. And we have lots of different breads and modifiers. And they all have fun names that we thought through. And so this is one of those. This is another one. This is the Mr. Burns, and it has pickled jalapenos and onions that we make in house, and it has a special like jalapeno mayonnaise, and we make the bread in house. Like that bread is made by me, and it just is. It's not just your typical cafe that has really good coffee doesn't usually have really good food also. You might be able to get toast or a bagel or pastries, but we really wanted to have that place that had everything, something for everybody. If you don't like coffee, there's so many other things that you can have
Can you hear me, Erica?
That is somewhat affordable. Our basic breakfast sandwich we try to keep at the lowest price point so that it's not completely out of reach. It's hard when you're trying to use cage-free eggs and locally sourced meat and you make the pickles yourself. You know, it's just trying to do what we can to keep a range of people so that people feel welcome when they come in. And that is a huge part of what we're trying to do. We also make smoothies because we are attached to a gym. We really wanted to make sure that we catered to those customers as well. And so we have really fun smoothies that we love. And so November 2017, so we've been open for 3 years. And when we first opened, we have a full kitchen, but I am not a baker in any way, shape, or form. And so what we were doing was we were ordering like pre-made doughs for our pastries and then just baking them off every morning. But we just were not making enough money, and we also just didn't feel really proud of what we were serving. And so I'm not a baker, but I said, you know what, I just want to have one thing that is ours that we feel really proud of, and what should that be? And so I just said, you know what, blueberry muffins is a staple. It's a coffee house staple. I'm just going to see if I can make it. And so I just started making blueberry muffins, every recipe I could find, and we just taste tested blueberry muffins for like a week. And this is the outcome, is we have this was the first blueberry muffin I actually posted for sale in November 2017. And it kicked off a completely new avenue for our company of baking. And from this point, I actually became a baker. The blueberry muffin was so popular. It is the best muffin I've ever had, which it feels really good to feel that way about your product, of like, I feel like I love this muffin. And so we started the blueberry muffin, and then we started scones, and then we started cookies. And then all of a sudden, after a couple years, I am now baking everything in-house. Everything is my own recipe. Everything just comes from taste testing and using what I know is to be comfort and
Oop. Can you hear me? It's a weird thing that happens, but if it's like the time before, we'll just have her show up again.
I don't know anything about baking other than what I've just taught myself working out these recipes. And so sometimes they come out really good, sometimes bad. But now it's funny not knowing anything about baking and then starting to bake. It kind of all seems familiar all of a sudden, where you kind of know the base of muffins now. I kind of can look at a recipe and kind of know what the texture will be. I can kind of look at a cookie recipe and tell you what the texture will be. It's just funny that like everyone's treats can be so different, but at the same time, there is a method to follow. You know, it is a science, and so it's really special to say, what do I want a cookie to feel like and taste like, and how can I put that, actually like get that point and then serve it to others. And so I make sure we always have gluten-free things, although we're not a designated gluten-free kitchen, but we always try to have something for everybody. We always try to have vegan treats. We always try to have gluten-free treats. We always try to do our best to make sure that when someone comes in our space, that they feel like there is something for them, even if it's something small. We want to make sure that the hospitality part is the part that I am so passionate about. And so the other thing about baking in-house is that you're able to bring the price down quite a bit, because there's just more of a markup and there's a little more flexibility. And so that also just really changed the way that we are able to serve the community. And now I would say something we're really well known for is our bakery program, which I never thought I would say that in a million years. So when it came to food, you know, I never really tried to incorporate my culture or my family into our food program. I don't know why. It just felt weird to me for some reason. And I think too, I'm just more sensitive to that. And it's really hard when you have a recipe from your abuela and you serve it and they go, oh, it's okay. It's like, it feels terrible. And so it, you know, I had always been more hesitant to do that. It's always been just other things that I've come up with. But one year in our shop, I wish I had a picture, I don't, because I was too busy cooking. We did a big community Thanksgiving where we just invited anyone who wanted to come to the shop on Thanksgiving Day, and we did Thanksgiving. And in El Salvador, we do our turkey a certain way. It's
Seems like she'll come back again. Pardon whatever. I've never experienced this on Zoom, the invisible disappearance and then simultaneous return.
So I decided to make that for this community Thanksgiving. And part of that tradition is that you take that meat and
that was quick. Let's see. I don't think she can hear us. Maybe like the whole internet is freezing for her when that happens.
Bread with turkey. It's not like, but my family has a nickname for it. I'm sure it's like a well-known nickname. It's hit or miss. I know some people that know this nickname and some don't, but we call it trompipe. And so I decided after that community Thanksgiving that we were going to serve this sandwich just for a few days because we had all this turkey cooked in our kitchen. And so I just said, you know what, we're going to try it. So it's this turkey covered in sauce, tomatoes, radish, watercress, and mayonnaise on a big bolillo roll. And I served it and it just felt so good. I just loved serving it. I loved sharing like with my grandma about like that I was serving it. And also it's also weird serving something from your family and like charging a premium price. It feels weird. It feels kind of off. Like I sell this sandwich for $9 and you should see my grandparents' reaction when I'm like, this sandwich is $9. They're like, what? Does it come with drinks and like, what does it come with? It comes with chips. That's about it. But because it's very labor intensive. It's so many vegetables to prep. It cooks for a really long time. You have to blend all of it. It's labor intensive and it just for some reason feels weird to charge a premium price when we know that other people would probably take this, maybe other people not from our culture will take this and sell it for a premium price and people would pay it, but for some reason it feels weird for me to do it. And this is something I've talked with other minority business owners about selling their food from their family. It's just, it is something that we have to be able to value our work, you know, and value the story behind it and value the labor behind it. And so this is that sandwich. It's really good. I totally recommend it. And it's been really fun to have that on the menu. We just kept it on the menu so you can get it anytime now. And it's been really sweet to have that there and to serve it to our community and to have that connection with them. This is part of making that sauce. So you can see that like you have tomatoes, you have to take the skin off. You have lots of nuts and seeds, spices, prunes, onion, peppers, carrots, and lots of chiles and different things. And so you roast this all together and blend it all up, and that's how you get this sauce. It has been so fun accepting that I am a talented baker, even though I've never enjoyed baking or even have training or anything like that, but actually just accepting who I am and what my palate is and how I can translate that into a baked good and serve it to others. And so it's been really fun over the last couple years to actually just be creative with that and come up with things that I just feel like making and serving it, even if it's for a day. Because something else that feels weird to me sometimes is maybe just having something for one day. It feels weird to not have something like the consistency of the menu. Like for some reason, it feels like customers come in and expect to see the same things every day. And there is some truth to that, but it's also been really fun to explore and just to make whatever I feel like when I have the time and to serve it to others. For example, this day on Valentine's Day, my mom came and we decided to make apple fritters. And the reason why is because my parents grew up in South Central. They met as teenagers at Winchell's Donuts. And my grandma was the manager of Winchell's Donuts for like 20 years. And she ended up hiring my dad to work there and then ended up hiring my mom. And so they met as teenagers working at Winchell's Donuts together. And so for Valentine's Day, to honor their love story, me and my mom made apple fritters and sold them to our customers. And that is also a labor of love. Donuts are really hard to make, so props to all the donut makers. But it was just really special and sweet to share personal stories with the customers, with our community, and do this together with my mom. I'm really sad because we are also planning a pupusa pop-up pretty soon, but with COVID and stuff, it's just been hard. So be on the lookout for that. And now we're branching out. We're having fun in the kitchen right now because of COVID, we're not allowing anyone inside the actual cafe. I installed a speaker box on the outside of the building. And so people order online, they come up to the door and just tell us their order name. And we just, stick our arm out the door for them. And so not having people in the space has actually opened up so much freedom for us because, like, for example, one day I just said, you know what, I really want to make burgers. And before, I would never make burgers inside of a cafe space because people are sitting in there and they're trying to enjoy their coffee and their pastry. They don't want to smell burgers. That the smell thing is an important factor of a cafe experience. And so, I would never do that before, but now no one's in the cafe. And so I baked the bread. My chefs came up with the burger itself. We came up with a special and we did a burger weekend. And it was just so fun. It was so fun to just do what we love and what tasted good to us. And people love that because now we've built these relationships and our customers enjoy what we serve them and we're able to be creative and have some fun in the kitchen. We're definitely going to do Burger Day again. It was really fun, really good. We had vegan, we had gluten-free options. We tried to, again, include everybody in what we're trying to do and make space for people. This is just a new pastry I came up with maybe a week ago. It's a brioche Danish. It has cream cheese filling and lemon curd and some raspberries on top, and super popular, making a lot. And that's the last picture I have. And something, let's see, how do I go back to you?
The stop share, it's like up the top red button.
Oh. Okay, perfect. So something else that has come up from coronavirus is that we have stayed open and so many other places have not, unfortunately. And the places that have stayed open are not able to get baked goods right now. And so about 2 months ago, we had one cafe reach out and said, hey, I heard you bake everything in-house. Like, could you bake for us? And I can't believe that. Like, I am not a baker. I keep saying I'm not a baker, but here I am baking for my cafe now and baking breads and baking all the things and now baking for another cafe and branching out and delivering to them every morning. And then another cafe called and they said, well, can we get treats too? And now in the last 2 months, I went from serving 0 cafes to serving 8 cafes. I now deliver to 8 cafes every morning, baked goods, including Stumptown Coffee, which is like a huge account. So like if you were to tell me maybe like a year ago or 2 years ago that this is where I'd be now, this is how I would be sharing my palette and my flavor with Portland, I would have laughed at you. This is not the way that I would have thought that I would be sharing my food. But now it has become such a special part of my work and baking and making everything look so beautiful and seeing it in other people's windows. Which is really, really cool. So you can find my treats now at Sterling Coffee Roasters in Northwest, Deadstock Coffee in Chinatown, all the Stumptown locations, there's 4, at Kopi Coffee on Burnside in Southeast, and on Fridays at Gilder Coffee in Northeast Portland as well. I think I'm missing one, but I can't remember right now. But it is challenging. This work is really hard. It's a labor of love because I love the community that we are in. I really want to serve and make space for people. I really feel now, I'm 29, that I feel secure in who I am as a person and my culture. And I want to share that with other people. And I want my daughters to be able to be in that culture as well, and that experience. And so we're actually going to be completely rebranding our company this year. It's not going to be called the Arrow anymore. We are going to be calling it Café Reina, which means coffee queen in Spanish. And I'm super excited about that change. I'm so excited about the brand. I finally got the logo almost done. It's taken a long time. We were supposed to launch right now, but with the coronavirus, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the right time because, you know, in March, we had to all of a sudden switch everything online. We had to create our whole menu on a website online under the Arrow. And now to try to switch over brands right now, it doesn't feel right. And so whenever we are able to really feel like we're in the right spot and get all of the admin stuff done, we're going to be launching our new brand. And part of that is thinking about the specific community that we are in and how we can actually make our shop look approachable even from the outside. Because right now from the outside, it looks so serious. It doesn't reflect my heart on the outside. And so that is part of the reason why we wanted to change the brand, is that we want people to look at this and we want it to see the fun and the warmth and the hospitality part. And we don't feel like we have that right now. Coffee, specialty coffee in general, is so white dominated and white focused, and the spaces are curated for white people. But again, like I was saying before, the coffee itself is Black and brown excellence spread across the world. It's from Black and brown people. And when you get to the States, a lot of Black and brown people, they go into a cafe and they comfortable because it's not a space for them. The baristas might be a little snobby, the prices are super high, the space might be a little quiet or awkward, and there isn't a lot of flavor. And I think in the beginning of my career, I really wanted to adapt to that. But I wanted to get into that culture. But now, after 7 years and growing up from age 22 to 29, I'm like, no, I want to change the culture, and I'm going to change the culture, and I'm going to continually put my identity and make the space for Black people and for other minority people. We are going to change the culture to adapt to us. And so that's something I'm so excited for this year. And I have been outspoken because I realize that I have a voice and that people are listening to me, and it's the time to be loud and to show that. And so, you know, something that was so encouraging to me this year was working with Mis Tacones, because that was the first time in my entire career where my space was filled with other Latinx people, Spanish-speaking people, and it felt so good. It felt so right. It felt, that is what I want for my space. And so, but we have to do the work. We have to dismantle the white focused culture that we have in cafes right now. We have to do the work. We have to break apart what it means to be hospitable in different cultures. We have to break apart what it means to be professional. We have to break apart the things, how we communicate with our staff. You know, if you want a diverse staff, you have to think about how you're communicating with them. And so when it comes to serving food and connecting and building community, these are the things that are constantly on my mind, especially the neighborhood that we're in. And so that is my presentation for you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I am obviously, I still have a lot of energy. Yeah, woohoo, we're gonna do this. Y'all are in it with me. You know, but very excited.
No, it's great. And it's interesting. The whole kind of like bakery account thing evolved. I mean, I used to go to the shop weekly, at least, when I was also working in King School. And I have been away, but I've been following you online, and you mentioned the kind of online bakery account thing, but I'm surprised to hear how it's exciting to hear how it's exploded. I'm not surprised how you are always been so deeply immersed in the community, and is interesting. I was also thinking about how coffee is often farmed in South America, but never was thinking about premium coffee as this kind of exhibition of Black and brown work and labor. So all that's really exciting. Thank you for sharing it. Really appreciate you having you here and getting you kind of included in this dialogue. For general folks, I'm now going to introduce Jordan Rosenblum, who's a artist, friend, collaborator, peer, and he's going to lead us through some dialogue and prompting around time capsule / recipe as a time capsule. Jordan, take it away.
Awesome, thanks. Thank you for that quick transition. Erica, so awesome to hear you. Yeah, it was great. And Carlos is a cohort buddy of mine. So great to catch that too.
Jordan's a mainstay at the cafe as well.
Yeah, I am. Oh yeah. No, breakfast cookie. I'm like a weekly breakfast cookie person. And when you close down, I like cried a tear. And I will say this, I know this is totally unrelated, but the seriousness of which you took COVID-19 and the hygiene around it was like so forward thinking and so far ahead of any business I saw. And I honestly almost still do, that it was incredibly, like the demonstration of that in terms of the type of care you were offering was really special. So I just want to
thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
I'm going to hustle this thing. I'm going to do a really, really quick 50-slide presentation in like 2 minutes. And then really this is just a setup for conversation. And so this whole next kind of like closing chapter of this is going to be pretty short, but really I think what we're getting at is kind of, we're going to ask you to participate in a little bit of conversation. Sounds like Michael prepped you.
The time capsule and the recipe and the stories.
Okay, cool. Is it helpful to have a visual aid? Let's do it.
You can do this. You texted me at 8 in the morning just for this.
Let's do this thing. Here we go. Okay. You're seeing this, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Sweet. This really will be pretty quick, I swear. If I can figure this out. Presenter view. Great. All right. Yeah, there's seriously a million slides in here. Let's do this. But it's gonna be fast. All right, well, here's my super quick one. As Michael told you, we're working on this project that basically is wrapped around time capsules. I first got turned on to the idea of a time capsule as an elementary school kid. This isn't that one, but I found an image. I was like, oh, like they tore up some asphalt on the basketball court, and we all contributed, and they like buried it under the asphalt. And then at some point, who knows when, they were going to tear it back up. No idea. So the when and if that ever has happened. Typically, like in my mind, when I think of time capsules, it's things like this. It's like this monumental, this is buried at the World's Fair in Corona, Queens, first in 1938 and then in 1965 by a corporation, by the Westinghouse Corporation. This is what the structure looks like. It's like this penetrating steel chamber inaugurated by exclusively white men from the look of it. And like these things, these cultural objects that were really diverse, like from like a Holy Bible literally to like a Barbie doll went in this one. So I'm interested in like rethinking this or applying the frame. And I think about things like petroglyphs as another way of thinking about kind of like how we record time, think about time, and kind of connect with past and future. And there's lots of things that happen like this in the natural world. It's like this thing that just mirrors this idea everywhere. So like tree rings are a really obvious one to some of us, not to some of us. Once I learned this, of course, I don't know when I did, that each ring represents a year of growth, and like the events of that year are locked into the pattern of the tree. Really elegant. And like just thinking about genetics really as the basis of really being able to think about like human life, like life biology is inherently a time capsule. So I'm really kind of in love with that idea. And one of the other aspects of this is that when we create or think about this, when I do, really what we're also doing is like imagining a future. Because like if we're gonna imagine, if like we're putting a time capsule towards a utopic society, we're like, oh, it's gonna be bomb. Like we're in a floating city with like abundant aquatic life. Like we're gonna make a certain kind of information that we wanna send forward. If it's dystopic, it's going to look really different, what we're thinking about sending forward. And so I'm like, I love this idea that we're also like creating a future just by the act of coming together. So I think, Michael, you told them the backstory on that to do?
I did roughly that there was a time capsule for the Village Building Convergence. It was 20 years old and we dug it up, but no nuances.
Done. I think that's all we need.
Yeah, that's so, Mark, the founder. You got the rest. Yeah. What I told you just now is everything I told them.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I was trying to get to the meat. But this is important. And basically the part of the reason this project really got launched is once we found out they actually had a time capsule. We didn't know that when Michael Kirk and I first started talking about this collaboration, but it turns out the Village Building Convergence and Mark and Pedro, who is another founder in my understanding of the history, buried a time capsule on the first VBC on the property that Mark lives on. So we like raced over there randomly one night, seemingly. We like spent an hour digging at this thing unceremoniously and came up with this beautiful little object, rusted shut, like pretty brutal, like Pedro's like strong arming the thing and gets it open. And it was actually really lovely. It was this funny moment, but also was really touching. We were like, well, should there be ceremony? Like, what is this thing? And it brought them back to that moment of when they put it in the ground and the way that the people there kind of came together as a community gesture. And they did things like put seeds in there. And that's kind of a classic move also. Again, thinking about like seed preservation and the future and the importance of seed and where that comes from and how important that is to preserve cultures and ways of life. And the tool of seeds for colonization, which is a sub-note that exists also. Anyway, so they cracked this thing open. There's a bunch of notes in it. I think I even turned them off, so we're not even looking at them. That was probably a mistake. But there's some really lovely little notes in here, most of which are about kind of imagining, like kind of sending love and light forward into the future. And they're really sweet, but it also was this thing where Mark was really interested in, talked about, like really thinking that being strategic and being really clear about what this future was and what had to get done was important.
And the love and light was a direct quote.
Was it? Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I added that. At this point, we've done this like 4 times. I don't remember.
Yeah. No, that's a direct quote. And Mark was wishing for enhanced specificity.
Yeah, totally. Which is really carried over in how we've been talking about this project through the week, which has been like, no, really, like this isn't just a soft exercise in like all holding hands. There's like real energy here, and we're really talking about creating a living history that's ours, and whatever that means, like your community, my community, our bound community. And I think that one of the things, oh, here we go. I'm just going to skip it for now, though. That's really powerful for me. I'll read one of these. Like one of the notes that was in here was a cultural continuum is reliant on the exchange of love, food, energy, skills, inspiration, vision, and guidance embraced by Earth. Right. So like the perfume of that is really sweet. And there are drawings of these sketches of village and community. And so you can see there's a certain kind of thing that was coming through. Great.
You're doing it.
Here we go. We're moving right in. And so what kind of came out of this project is we opened all this up and we were like, okay, 20-year anniversary. This was kind of happened impromptu. We were like, well, what about 20 years from now? Like, what does it mean to put something back in and decide that every 20 years you're going to bury something and you're going to pull it back up as a way of reflecting on time, as a way of touching into what that looks like. And so that's the intention. So part of what we're doing today in this week of collecting knowledge and people's experiences are for that site and for this festival and for the work that's being done and will continue to be done. And then the other part of it is for all of us. It's like, what is to have a living time capsule that people can just keep feeding, that can be distributed, that's not about one person's backyard. It's really important to do that. And I think for the sake of village building convergence and city repair, it is. There's like history here that's real, and they're doing this beautiful work. And we want to like encourage that, deepen that from a community perspective. But we also want this to be for everyone, right? And looking at COVID and the pandemic and that fracturing and the online thing, it's like this whole event, right, has been reformulated around this distributed model where we're connected in a different way, of course. That's self-evident. I don't have to go into that. So here we are. When Michael, Kirk, and I were talking about this too, we were like, okay, if we did like a theme every night, you know, and we were like, recipes, it is the thing. Like, recipe is inherently, completely, and preformed time capsule. Like, for me, it's right. It's so inherently a preservation of culture. It's so inherently an intention or wish. And hearing both of you, all three of you, talking about food as this extension or labor of love, which it is in so many cultures, and certainly is in mine and how I cook. And this kind of idea of the gift or of this well wish for the future, like, comes together in such a beautiful way in reflecting, I think, and thinking about recipes. These are your grandmothers, is that right, Michael?
Possible. I've allowed unmuting, so Mom, you can unmute.
Yeah, Nancy might have
things to say about this. I at 8 a.m. texted my mom to get Jordan's request for this. So, Mom, did you have something to say?
So the first couple were Grandma Mimi's meatballs. That's her handwriting. The next one I think was like breakfast pizza or something. Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah. The drink was brought home from Mexico. I had gone to Mexico, and this gentleman there had made his own drink. He created it himself, and we asked for the recipe because it was so good. So that's what that is. And then the last one is, as a child for Christmas every year, we would make these Christmas honey balls, and that's the basic recipe. You roll it out kind of like a snake, and then you cut it into little squares. And you fry them, and then you cover them with honey. And it was a tradition. We did it every year for lots of years.
Love it.
Did we just pay you? Yeah, that was like. So next time we can just skip it and have your mom.
Yeah. My mom's a time capsule. Mom, you can't die.
So thank you. Like, no, like, and for real, so beautiful. You know, I was just looking at them and being like, oh, the handwriting. And like, I'm captivated by these. And to actually hear that story come to life is beautiful for each of them.
Thank
you. Yeah, so here we go. Like, I think this is so much about like claiming a self-determined role in the future. That there is a future, that all of us have a place in it, and that we can self-determine that, I think is like really at the core of this. So really what we're gonna do now, what we'd like to do, unless anyone wants to like tweak this, I'm open, but I think what we've been thinking about is really thinking about like feeling into, just in a discursive way, like some conversations around like what's a recipe or food story that needs preserving or that you would want to preserve. And like, maybe we can think about 20 years, you can think about 2000 years, like both.
It will be a soft barrier, yeah, to kind of ping the facilitation that Jordan did, is that we will be burying another 20-year time capsule in Mark's backyard where we destroyed his bench. And it will be made available to other folks and may have other versions of it that exist in the 2000-year fashion.
Yeah. Yep. So this is a little technical. I don't know if we need it. I didn't know how big the group would be. I think we can just spitball this one. But just to say also, because one other aspect of this is basically what we're going to have these conversations now. What we're hoping is that the stories that come up, and you're not going to write out a recipe right now, I presume. But what we will do is just like come up with dishes, right? Can we come up with dishes or some basic ideas that we would want to go in this? And those ideas might be enough, but we're also asking if people are willing. We step away from tonight, and at some point over the next week or whatever it is, like, and we'll like kind of gently nudge people to provide some actual recipes or provide some actual stories that we can use to start kind of kick off this bigger time capsule piece and food, which as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, this is the best. This is the most interesting like version of it for me, for sure.
And I've got everyone queued up whenever you're ready.
I'm out. Okay.
Good to go. The split. You still want to do that?
Yeah. Do you want to do three? So it's like 3 groups of 4, basically. That's like a small.
Is that what you want?
What were you thinking? You guys set up.
You asked for 2, so I lined it up. I can switch it. Let's do 2. Make it rich. Some folks can just be listeners.
Okay. Michael?
Yes.
So relatively brief, I'm assuming people are feeling like, I'm assuming we're like getting there. So I don't know. I'll let you tell us.
I have you and Kirk as facilitators in each room.
Okay.
You ready? It's going to happen. Join the room. Have this conversation. It'll be rich. How much time do you want? 5, 8, 7?
He's going 5, 10. You got to go 10. 10 or less. We can check in. I mean, come on. 5 minutes?
I'm going 9, and then I'll give you the 1-minute warning. Time
7.
to go.
We'll agree on 7.
Going. Everyone join.
7.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Hopefully that was some fruitful and engaging dialogues. We will wait for that other group is still just talking. They're using their last 13 seconds to get last recipe secrets.
Oh, it's so much better. Yeah.
And Jordan is in that group, so here he comes. Welcome back all. I see Jordan is scribing away. I try to make the groups well matched. I see from smiles I did a good job. Jordan, usher us. Oh, Kirk's trying to get the name of a dish. You're muted, Jordan. Oh man, what's going on?
Okay. I'd just like to hear, at least because I was in the other group, I'd like to hear just a tiny bit. I think what we can do is, I'd be curious if someone scribed a little bit or like a couple share backs, and kind of start to wrap it up. Ours was super, from my perspective, super fruitful and really encouraging and surprising. It's like, oh, we don't need recipes. We need something totally different. So it was really interesting to see what
you tell me. I wasn't in a group, so I missed it. What happened?
Let's have another group. I don't mean to be all.
Yeah. Kirk, what happened in your group? You're muted.
I would say a lot of our thoughts were going back toward like foods that our families made, just like memory being a very important thing, as well as like kind of like in the conversation of tonight, how that also brought out favorite foods of ours. So the conversation that we're having together also helping ground us in what we want to share. Check.
Nice. Was it just the two groups? It was.
It was just two groups.
Does Nancy or Erica want to share back a little bit instead of me? Would you?
Go ahead, Jordan. You do it. I did a lot of talking already.
Oh, you did? I've been talking for like 8 hours on Zoom today. Okay.
Come on, this is a new Zoom container.
Here we go.
On this one.
Erica, did you want to? You unmuted. You want to represent us?
Oh, I talked a lot. I talked a lot in our group, so I'm curious to hear what you got.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna run with this.
I've been telling Jordan this for days.
I'm going, and I'm blurry again. Okay, so what came up for us, I think, or the way I interpreted it was there was a lot of talk about, we realized we had this connection across cultures for these specific kinds of ritual. And it like we stumbled across, or Erica brought up an example of like going to pick up baked goods on Sunday as a ritual. And Nancy started to recall one from her youth in Brooklyn. I started to recall one from my youth in the suburbs of New York. And there was something that came up also about memory. So it was interesting to hear Kirk say that, like about memory and like intention. So it was almost like, oh, like maybe we don't need recipes, but like there's something about the like quality of intention of this food ritual, of like how we work together with our family members. And Erica talking about her, like with her daughter, and there was something about that just felt really touching to me. So I'm like scribbling notes to be like, oh, how is this phrased? Like this can go in, like it doesn't have to be. Yeah, it's just interesting. It was surprising. Yeah.
Well, and even too, if I can add just like the recipe is important also, but it's like, what did we do with that recipe? Like I can say, here's chumpy big sandwich, but what did we do with it? We actually ate it on the holidays, and we prepared it together in this way. And it's, if you just have a recipe, it's one thing, but if you have the recipe with the ritual and the memory, then it really changes.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting, kind of like pinging everyone's presentation. There were no recipes, but it was kind of the story that's related to the food item. And I agree. And I guess it's an interesting way to approach it, that the recipe isn't just ingredients to make the dish. The recipe is also kind of the social ritual surrounding it. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Nice.
Any other folks have notable and shareable experiences? Would love to hear from everyone or anyone.
Or not. You can also wrap it.
Yeah. Which, for folks who are here, we have your email via Eventbrite, and have a way of kind of reaching you, because this project will continue into the future. And I did take a quick restroom break, and realized that this, and thank you all, this is really helpful for kind of workshopping. Like, it was like, okay, we want recipes and stories. I was like, wait a minute, it's actually this other thing. And so this is a very helpful kind of workshopping moment to tailor it, and we will continue to extend it, and we're continuing to look forward. And this was kind of like our whimsical reach, which again, pinging the story with Mark when we dug up the time capsule, he's like, yeah, Love and Light's cool, but shit is fucked up. Like, I wish we were more specific 20 years ago. And so that's kind of some of the work we're doing now, is like, what kind of specificity can we bring into this exercise? So in 20 years, we're going to be like, yes, this. And so tomorrow will be a major deep dive, given that we're going to be speaking about the Afro-Contemporary Art class and all the work we've done. And one of the kind of prompts will be like, what are our goals? Like, yes, we're going to bury these, and we're going to keep a copy and work towards them. So thanks for workshopping us. Jordan, you want to wrap up the time capsule thought?
No, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Great. I put my email in there. I mean, I know most of you. Hi, Amy. Good to see you. But I put my email in there if you want to reach out if something strikes you about this that you'd like to contribute in some form. This is real, meaning something is going to be created and kept with us and carried on. So if stuff comes up, please reach out. Otherwise, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging through.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hit us. What do you got, Carlos?
Oh, I just said thank you, Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good.
Thanks all for joining. Really appreciate it. There was a lot of content in this container, and it was all recorded. So if you heard anything that you loved, we'll again push this out so you can share with folks. Kirk, you want to sign us off?
If you're going home, get home safe, get some rest, drink water, take care of however you need to take care of yourself. And thank you everyone for spending time with us and spending time together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Carlos.
Thank you.
Birthday.
Thank you.
He Zoom bombed us. Yeah, thanks again, everyone. This concludes the programming for this evening, but again, tomorrow evening, we're going to be presenting all about the Afro-Contemporary Art class, which is 80 participants plus strong. People are really excited about that content, and I'm really excited to share it. And there'll be young folks from the class, and Ken Ford, former Black Panther, is going to be there. So tell your friends, and have a wonderful evening. Sleep and rest well.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
My mom's on the East Coast, so she's like, hey, I was ready for bed.